Dallas Mavericks pick up their 41st win tonight of the season. They get back to 500. They beat the New Orleans Hornets 99-87. And tonight I am joined by Earl K. Sneed. We're going to give you a little bit of a different wrap-up than we normally do, considering this is the last game of the season. So, Earl, what were your thoughts on the game tonight?
I thought it was huge to see Darren Collison bounce back and to finish up with 25 points, just because everything he's been through this season. When you talk about bringing in Derek Fisher, Mike James, they've just had so many people playing ahead of him all season long. You look at Dominique Jones was even playing ahead of him and starting at one point. So to see him rally and finish up on this point, being 25 years old, going into free agency, it was huge for him. But then Dirk Nowitzki, Sean Marion, Vince Carter, the three veterans that have really carried this team all season long, all played well. And it was fitting to end with a double-digit win in front of these fans to finish at 500. And they avoided their first losing record since the last time they didn't make the playoffs in 1999-2000 season.
Darren Collison, you mentioned he did have a really good game off the bench. He kind of finally settled into that role off the bench. And in the pregame, Coach Carlisle talked about leaving a lasting impression is probably better than your first impression. Do you think Collison's done enough to return to the Mavs next year?
It's hard to say. I don't even know if he wants to at this point, because in his mind, and you want this from any player, but in his mind, he still feels like he's a starter. Rick Carlisle wants him to play kind of like Jason Terry role, but play from the point guard position and be one of those 6 or 7 starters with 2 guys coming off the bench. He considers Vince Carter a starter also. So is his confidence kind of shot because they've played so many people ahead of him at the point guard position? Maybe, but at the same time, I don't think the market is going to be huge for him. And if they're in the market to bring back a young point guard, because I don't think Roddy Bobois is coming back, he might have that door open for him to come back, especially with a performance like this in the season.
There's a lot of unanswered questions that the Mavericks are going to have to answer this summer. The veterans really did a great job this year, and Coach Carlisle alluded to that in his pregame and postgame comments. Vince Carter and Sean Marion, they've really been putting up big numbers. Dirk, once he got healthy. Do you think we're going to see all 3 veterans back? In the post game, Coach Carlisle took a lot of the burden for the season that the Mavericks had, and he also said that Mark Cuban took it pretty hard as well. Do you think it was more on the players or more on that front office and coaching?
I mean, there were 10 games below 500, and I've never seen Rick Carlisle work harder than he did, not even the championship year, just the hours he was spending and the amount of teaching he had to do with this team because they were so young. I wouldn't put it on Carlisle. I wouldn't put it on Mark Cuban, even though everyone wants to. He signs my check, so I wouldn't do that anyways. But even if people wanted to do that just because the championship team got broken up, because if you look at how this team finished up, they finished up on a 50-win pace. So if Dirk doesn't miss the first 27 games of the season, maybe they do make the playoffs. If they win half of the overtime games they were in or half of the one-possession games that they were in, then they end up making the playoffs. So I'm going to put it on the players, but at the same time, they were a young team, so you got to have those growing pains if they decide to keep this team together.
All right. Well, the Mavericks, they get back to 500. They beat the New Orleans Hornets tonight to close out the season 99-87. I'm Norel Dixon. You've just been credentialed.